How a poor English sidecar maker founded Jaguar cars. There's no denying that Jaguar belongs on any list of the finest sports cars. Since its beginnings, this automobile manufacturer has made great strides. But are you aware of the man who founded this amazing car? Do you know how he turned a sidecar business into this hit brand? No? Then stay tuned to Business Bang to find out. And let's get started. For 50 years, Sir William Lyons was Jaguar, and his vision and leadership are largely responsible for the company we know and love today. Modern Jaguar purchasers are likely oblivious to this one man's role in shaping the iconic car. After all, unlike a Porsche or Ferrari, you won't find the name Lyons stamped across the trunk lid. Not his style. His approach embodied a quiet sophistication that was matched by its briskness, openness, and grace. At all times, Lyons provided exceptional value. Without William Lyons, the Jaguar automobile as we know it today would not exist, and the automotive industry would be missing out on one of the greatest motor cars ever conceived and produced. Back on September 4th, 1901 in Blackpool, England, a boy named William Lyons entered the world. One of his parents ran a music store, making him the heir apparent. Early in life, he took a keen interest in motorcycles, and at the age of 18, he was the proud owner of an oil bath Sunbeam. But in his mind, nothing could compare to a Harley-Davidson. Bill Lyons, a young entrepreneur, lived diagonally across the street from William Walmsley, who would later become his business partner. When Bill Lyons saw Walmsley's Swallow sidecar, he was captivated by its unique octagonal shape and decided to purchase one to go with the Norton motorcycle he had recently acquired. He then decided to go into business with Walmsley. One of Mr. Lyons' three great strengths was on display at this point. For example, Bill Lyons seemed to have an extraordinary aptitude for business, especially for a young man of 20 who lacked any formal education in the field. He convinced Walmsley that by implementing a few of his ideas, they could boost output and revenue. One of them was to find a new location for the company's operations, as Bill Lyons' ambitious production goals outgrew the confines of Walmsley's garage. They became the Swallow Sidecar Company in 1922 after formally forming a partnership with some help from their parents. With the Bro Superior's motorcycle, the Swallow Sidecar quickly became the first of many hugely successful creations from Lyons. By the middle of the 20th century, they had achieved great success and had branched out to include coach building. The boys in Blackpool took Austin's engine and chassis as their starting point and created a sleek two-seater of their own design. As demand for the cars increased, the company decided to relocate to England's Midlands in 1928. Because of the abundance of both skilled workers and manufacturing facilities in the area, they settled into Coventry's Foles Hill factory. Production increased from 12 cars per week to 50 as a direct result of Lyons' efforts to find better ways to get the job done. Everything they could get their hands on, including the Standard 9, was rebodied. Lyons' sense of fashion was decades ahead of its time. The swallow-bodied variants, which Lyons redesigned to have a lower profile, look much more modern and sleek. Already at this early stage in his career, he has established several of the design themes that have come to define all Jaguars up to the present day. However, it wasn't until 1931, when he and Walmsley released their first genuine cars, the SS1 and 2, that William Lyons' career as a car builder got off the ground. Having to use the engine and chassis of another manufacturer severely limited the creative options available to the Lyons, so they had to develop their own chassis and use an existing, reliable engine. Astutely, Lyons had the dependable standard 16 engine paired with a chassis built to his specifications by the Rubery Owen Works. Without the massive overhead of producing engines and chassis, they were free to focus on coach work, which was and is still their area of expertise. The automotive press of the time was quite taken with the car and its design, despite its introduction in a year when the rest of the motoring world lacked inspiration and originality. The first genuine Lyons car in 1932 set the tone for all subsequent SS's and Jaguars, which were marketed as the best of all worlds due to their combination of elegance, spaciousness, and speed at an affordable price. It would have been easy for Walmsley to relax and enjoy the profits from the SS1 and 2 success, and that's exactly what he did. In contrast, Lyons had much greater aspirations and vision. He desired even greater speed and agility from his automobiles than the standard 16 could provide. With the introduction of his new SS Jaguar automobile line in mind, he set out to design a powerful engine to power them. The company's fortunes began to change dramatically around the middle of the 1930s. Walmsley quit because he was more interested in tinkering and model railroading, and SS cars went public without him. The most important thing is that Lyons, the current chairman and emperor, showed off his second greatest talent. He was a successful businessman, so he knew to find competent help for the tasks he couldn't handle himself. He was a successful businessman and fashion designer, but not an engineer. Consequently, he did the next best thing and hired top-tier engineering talent. He had a natural talent for it, too. Lyons has surrounded himself with Jaguar's most talented and driven specialists. When he established a legitimate engineering division, he hired William Lyons to run it. Previously, he had hired the brilliant coachmaker Cyril Holland to oversee the coach-building operation. What Harry Westlake said about how moving the valves to the overhead position instead of the side impressed Lyons. Thus, he enlisted the services to create the first authentic Jaguar engine, giving his new models more than just good looks. Overhead cylinder heads were a brilliant improvement, increasing horsepower in the new engine from 70 to 103.3. And because Lyons had standard make the heads to his exact specifications, his company was able to avoid the massive outlay of cash needed to make engines. Here, Lyons displayed yet another of his skills, a knack for showmanship and advertising. When he introduced his new Jaguar line, he shocked attendees at a convention for retailers. They were shocked to learn that despite the car's high-quality design, luxurious interior, and impressive performance, it would only sell for about half of what they had anticipated. After the success of their first four-door saloon, Lyons decided to focus on creating a genuine sports car. The resulting SS 100 turned out to be a vehicle with a lot of class, and it was found to be very reasonable in price. Customers were eager to buy Lyons' cars because he had correctly predicted the type of vehicle they would want. Since this was the case, saloons had to switch from using wooden frames to pressed steel. Many successful automakers failed in their attempts to make the switch to pressed steel during the Great Depression because of the difficulty in locating a good, reliable supplier. A stroke of luck allowed Jaguar to make it through the 1930s unscathed. From 1939 to 1945, Lyons and Company contributed to the war effort by making a variety of useful items. Coventry Factory produced crucial aircraft components that eventually flew on Lancasters, Stirlings, Mosquitoes, and Spitfires. They produced everything from sidecars to a small Jeep-style vehicle. Throughout the war, Lyons kept his top engineers on fire watch together to lay the groundwork for the Jaguars of the future. There was talk of a new, more powerful engine, and production methods were honed to allow for its incorporation. After World War II ended, Lyons quickly went back to making their saloons and drop-head coupes. And soon, the Mark IV name stuck. The SS 100 was never again made, and it would be another 4 years before the next sports car was released. Another adjustment was needed, and the war was the catalyst for that. Due to the negative associations with the SS initials, the company decided to change its name to Jaguar Cars Ltd. Jaguar found a ready market in North America and began setting up a network of dealerships around the continent at a time when British manufacturers were encouraged to export their wares abroad. Jaguar's future success relied heavily on the U.S. market, but it occasionally gave Lyons a hard time. Building a high-end, 100-mile-per-hour saloon was one of Lyons' lifelong goals. Due to Mark IV's inability to meet his expectations, preparations were made to create a new power plant that could meet his objectives. The 1948 Mark V had the same engine as the 4, but the body was updated and it had independent front suspension. The speed of 100 miles per hour remained elusive, though. Once the new Mark V chassis had proved successful, Bill Lyons began work on a new engine with the power to produce 160 horsepower. Bill Lyons put together a team consisting of Harry Westlake and Claude Bailey to work on this engine. This was, of course, the same group that had stood many a fire watch together during the war. Since Bentley was already using the Mark VI moniker, Jaguar skipped over it and went straight to the Mark VII with its 1950 debut. This saloon was the first to be equipped with Jaguar's new XK engine, making real Lyons' version of a 100-mile-per-hour saloon. The beginning of Jaguar's official participation in racing is a watershed moment in the sport's history, which occurred in the early 1950s. Lyons, confident that his new cars wouldn't, in his words, embarrass themselves, agreed to campaign his new sports car on the racing circuit with company support in 1950. Prior to this, individuals had campaigned various Jaguars on their own. He was keenly aware of the potential for renown enhancement and sales growth that could stem from victories on the racetrack, especially at Le Mans. Racing back then was considered low-cost marketing, and Lyons was confident in his company's ability to compete. Lyons knew that the new XK120, while already a highly capable sports car, would need some tweaks in order to be competitive on the international stage. With his expertise in aircraft design, Malcolm Sayer quickly modifies the XK120's exterior to improve its aerodynamics. Haynes rethought the racing suspension to make it lighter, and the new racer was given the secret designation C-Type for the track. The layout was not only superior in functionality, but also visually striking. Malcolm Sayer, another new addition to the Lyons team, possessed similar design skills. Sayer was one of the few people who could creatively combine the elements of aerodynamic design with beautiful styling. There were still the D and E types to come, which would be his greatest works. After Lyons' initial success with the Jaguar look, Malcolm Sayer became known as the other Jaguar stylist. William Lyons and Jaguar were at the height of their success in the 1950s and 1960s. At this point in time, it was obvious that Jaguar had begun to establish itself as one of the world's top car makers. No one but Lyons could have come up with such an original blend of ease, openness, and tempo. In the middle of the 1950s, Jaguar's popularity among car buyers worldwide, and particularly in the United States, began to grow. Jaguar's performance reputation was bolstered in the 50s by its dominance of the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans race. In 1951 and 1953, C-Types took first and second place at Le Mans, and in 1955, the even more aerodynamic D-Type took the checkered flag. For Lyons, the 1955 victory was bittersweet because his only son John was killed in a car accident on the way to Le Mans the day before the race. Jaguar officially left motorsports the following year. Individuals with a passion for racing stepped in, purchasing D-Types from a small production run and putting them through their paces in competition. The new XK engine was demonstrating excellent performance and dependability. Since it was so adaptable, Jaguar used it in every production model from the 50s and 60s, albeit in a wide range of sizes and configurations. Mark 8 and Mark 9 continued the large saloon range's impressive emphasis on grace. The largest Jaguar ever, the Mark 10, and its successor, the 420G, were both completely redesigned in the early 1960s. In 1956, Queen Elizabeth, a devoted Jaguar customer, visited the Coventry plant and knighted Lyons, at which point he became known as Sir William. Some people, both inside Jaguar and in the media, began to see him as less approachable after this. In 1956, a large portion of the factory was destroyed by a fire. In the days that followed, many XKSSs and Mark Is were destroyed in fires and scrapped, but there was something else incredible happening as well. An inferior company might have folded under the pressure, but Jaguar simply resumed its operations after cleaning up and restarting production of automobiles. The resilience of its employees in the face of such a catastrophe earned widespread praise and ultimately boosted Jaguar's sales. Providing both a sports car and a large saloon proved to be a winning formula for Lyons. Around the middle of the 50s, he made the call to add an intermediate sports saloon to the menu. There was a demand for a smaller luxury saloon that could navigate the tight streets of Europe because the larger saloon was designed primarily for the American market. Jaguar, more than any other automobile brand, was a true reflection of a single person's unique sense of style and taste. Jaguar owners who are curious about the thinking behind their car's design are always told that it's the way Lyons wanted it to be, regardless of whether the feature in question is a strength or a weakness of the vehicle. As you might expect, Lyons was not a fan of receiving negative feedback from their clientele. Malcolm Sayer improved upon his D-Type design in 1961 to create the E-Type, widely considered the most enchanted of all Jaguars. A quick glance at the E-Type's beautiful sensual lines was enough to win over Jaguar fans of any age. Indeed, the Jaguar E-Type was the 1960s production sports car that would once again put Jaguar in the lead. The year 1966 was a watershed moment for Jaguar. At the time, the ethos of most businesses was bigger is better, and Sir William agreed that this was the best way to ensure Jaguar's continued existence. It was because of this that Jaguar ended up being absorbed by the mammoth British Motor Corporation, which was then reabsorbed as British Leyland only 2 years later. Jaguar temporarily lost its sense of self and quality control during these difficult years of the 1970s. When Jaguar and BMC merged in 1966, it was a mistake that Lyons would come to regret because Jaguar almost lost its identity during the subsequent Leyland takeover. It was a stipulation of the contract that Jaguar would be treated as a separate entity, per Lyons' wishes. MG, Austin, and Morris were among the other British marques that were absorbed and ultimately lost in the ensuing consolidation. At this point, it was obvious that Lyons was getting ready for his impending retirement. But before he retired to the English countryside on his horse, he was determined to crank out one more car. One final design masterpiece that would include everything that has made Jaguar cars so distinctive over the years. In 1964, Lyons began overseeing the development of the XJ6, his ultimate sports saloon expression. Bill Haynes oversaw the XJ4 project, which also included Tom Jones and Bob Knight, who is widely credited with contributing to the XJ's legendary ride quality. Lyons' final creation would not have been possible without the brilliant engineering team he assembled. The car was set to use a modified version of the now famous XK engine, with hints of a more potent powertrain in the works. When it first appeared on the market, the Jaguar XJ6 became an instant hit. Jaguar insiders knew full well that Sir William ultimately approved all production decisions. It may come as a surprise to learn that before every launch, Lyons had the prototype sent to Walpenbury Hall for one last look by his wife, Greta. The year 1972 was a watershed year, signaling the end of an era. This year also marked the end of the Lyons era, as Sir William Lyons retired in March. The company he co-founded with Walmsley 50 years ago, which would eventually become Jaguar, must now move forward without him at the helm. William and his wife retired to their Walpenbury estate, where they raised sheep and cattle and generally relished the simpler life. Despite this, he never stopped caring about Jaguar, and whenever he was in the area, only half an hour away, he'd drive over to the design studio to share his thoughts. The 1970s, when Jaguar was owned by the British Leland Group, will be remembered as the company's darkest. Jaguar was fortunate to make it into the 1980s, given the company's history of labor disputes, strikes, supplier difficulties, and lax quality assurance. In 1985, Sir William Lyons passed away, leaving behind a legacy that will endure for years to come. He will be remembered for the special flair he brought to every automobile he produced, with his impeccable taste in design and style. Hence, the trunk label may read Jaguar, but we know it's a Lyons automobile. So this was all about Sir William Lyons and how he founded the Jaguar cars. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in our next video.